The future belongs to service providers who innovate without limits. That's why the fastest growing service providers are choosing the NetSapiens platform. Visit netsapiens.com.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with us again Stephen Douglas from Spirent, a Keysight company. Stephen, thank you for joining me today.
Doug, it's great to be back.
Well, we're going to be talking about 6G, and I almost feel like the kid in the back of the car that's, are we there yet? I think I can remember exuberant discussions just not too far long ago about how 6G 2030 would be the time when we would be starting to look forward to 6G and so on. But things may have changed. We're going to learn about those changing circumstances. Very significant information coming up. But Stephen, first of all, what is Spirent, a Keysight company?
So Spirent, we've came into the Keysight family through a recent acquisition. So we were a big test and assurance business for the communication sector, and obviously Keysight is one of not only the leaders within that space, but they're a design partner for sort of innovative and mission critical technologies right across the technology sphere. So we're very happy to be now part of that larger organization.
6G 2030, that seemed to be the formula. Has that changed?
It has. And I mean, 2030 is still a date, being focused on by many in it. But I think the first signs, Doug, of acceleration, we started seeing earlier this year back at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona in March, when I think a number of leading operators and vendors and governments as well announced plans for pre-commercial demonstration systems to be available actually in 2028. And that was to align with the LA Olympics and with China's Year of the Earth Monkey. Now, obviously, to reach a milestone like that, we need to have a near finalized standard to allow for early pre-silicon for the trials and early, prototype systems to be available. And what's interesting is that since March, the 6G standards body, that's the 3GPP, at their most recent plenary, which was held there in early June, they officially set the timelines now in stone. And you have the Release 21 standard, which is the first official 6G standard. You're going to see a stage 3 freeze in December 28, and then the ASN1, the APIs in March 29. Now, what that actually cumulatively means, Doug, is that you will see the first commercial 6G equipment and the first probably deployments by operators in sort of mid to late 2029. Now, obviously, to reach timelines like that, we're still in the 5G era. There's a huge percentage of the market still hasn't deployed 5G or is in some of the early stages of the different incarnations of 5G. But to get there, I think to get those aggressive timelines for 6G, you're going to see a huge focus now on sort of that rapid testing to prove out the evidence for the various new feature sets, the use cases, and the true value it can deliver. And there's a lot of challenges ahead. We haven't yet, as an industry, finalized the 5G to 6G migration paths. We haven't made decisions yet on whether terrestrial spectrum we'll allow it to be used by satellites. And even in the heart of the networks, not just the radio, the core network itself, the architecture hasn't been finalized. So these are pretty material, both architectural and deployment economic topics that still need to be resolved over the next few years if we're going to meet that sort of pre-commercial 2028 timeline and then the 29 timeline.
So, Stephen, it sounds to me like obviously AI, more than anything else, is driving this enormous change. It also, I'm hearing something else in your discussion there. The economics maybe have changed because, as we were just discussing before we started, I kind of remember the migration from 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G as being a lot of foot dragging, with carriers saying, oh, I don't know, it's not economical, I can't make money, and so on. Now you're saying this is driven by those same carriers. They're jumping ahead.
They are not everywhere, but quite a few of them are looking at it in terms of. I think it's the inflection point, Doug, of what we're seeing going on with AI at the moment. Globally, the opportunity around that, what the networks need to perform like and be architected like to support potentially the operator's role in monetizing AI. And also the opportunity for new types of services and features that were just not practical or technologically possible within the 5G system. So I think what you're seeing is a big shift, and AI is at the heart of that. And that big shift is moving from I would call it an AI assisted network to an AI native network. And what I mean by that there is that instead of AI being sort of bolted or added on, which it is today in 5G, to help optimize how the network performs, 6G is designing and embedding AI into everything. It's actually at the heart of the network. It's going to be part of operations, orchestration, security APIs, and the radio interface itself. So the big difference here is architectural. It's not just a few AI enhanced radios. You're going to see more and more intelligent automation of how the network operates, intent driven. So you'll see it's being driven by specific users' intent of how they need the network to perform for them. It'll be optimized specifically also for AI traffic. And to just give you a couple of examples of that, what the 6G system's looking at, we do anticipate to see AI agents, for example, that will be throughout the network predicting congestion, reconfiguring these network slices that are dedicated to specific traffic. They'll be detecting threats. They'll be exposing network capabilities out through APIs in real time to third parties. And you'll also see it integrated into the very, very complex radio networks at the physical layer, where AI will be able to dynamically predict the channel conditions and improving how that radio operates, increasing both spectral efficiency and reducing latency. So in essence, I think what you're going to see is it's not only an AI native network, but it's going to be a computational fabric for AI at the same time.
And before we move on, it sounds like I almost want to say that 6G is maybe not a justifiable name. I mean, 6G makes it sound like it's just, another generation along the line. It sounds like you're describing something very new.
It is still an evolution out of 5G. And I think that's still a takeaway. We're not talking about having to rip and replace the investments in 5G. So there is a generational movement here. But I would agree with you. I mean, we are getting to the points now where, as we make the networks more and more software defined, more cloud native, with lots more iterative sort of like releases coming, that sort of generational sort of name or naming convention maybe doesn't really justify it anymore. We're really talking about a platform. The networks are becoming more like a platform that's evolving to support evolving and future use cases all the time.
Now, Stephen, you brought with us a couple of slides. Maybe we should show them. Does these slides help illustrate this?
Yeah, I think if you put up let's just put up the timeline one to start with, and then we can jump into the architecture, high level conceptual architecture one as well. I mean, the timeline is just really summarizing where we are as an industry. I think it's what I mentioned before, this ambition now in 2028 to have sort of a pre-commercial demonstration systems, and then starting to really see the rollout of 6G from that 2029 timeframe. But you can also see at the bottom there of the slide some of the key capabilities that are evolving within the 6G system. And one of those stands out. We're talking about having AI communications as a big part of the network itself. So not only that the network is supporting how AI traffic is optimized across the network, we're also talking about using AI in the network itself to optimize how the network is managed, it operates. A big topic area is sensing, Doug, as well, which is a big part of it, integrated sensing and communications. That's using the radio as an opportunity to provide a sensing of objects, of the environment that we're in, at the same time as it's providing our traditional voice video data services. And that's seen as huge commercial potential for the market. And if you just jump into the second slide, that are just very high level, just for the listeners today. A big opportunity, I think, for a lot of the operators is their role within the AI ecosystem and the AI landscape. And I think there's this realization that today the way AI is being monetized is primarily through tokens. We buy a volume of tokens for the end services that we're consuming, and some of that, a large percentage of that token traffic is happening in the back end data centers. But what we're starting to see gradually is more and more of the computational of AI, especially the inferencing, is moving out to the edges of the networks, even onto the devices themselves. And this means that we're going to require a radical new networking architecture to support that, to support things like hypermobile AI, where you have lots of swarms of drones, which have a mixture of AI on board the drone, but also the requirement to have an edge cloud relationship to manage the specific inferencing, the contextual awareness of where that drone is at any given point in time. And again, here, this is where the 6G network is going to play an absolutely pivotal role, not only supporting the traffic requirements there, but also potentially playing a role in how it optimizes the token requirements, the token efficiency, how many tokens are going to be required to support that. It might even operate as a role as a broker to broker many language models which are behind the scenes. So you're seeing this sort of disaggregated architecture concept starting to come to the fore, driven both by where AI is moving, which is out to the edges, out to sort of the embodied nature, even on robotics, and also then where the network is evolving as well to be able to support the types of traffic beyond our traditional video voice traffic and AI traffic.
Historically, network performance and coverage, these were the things that sort of defined if you were winning or losing this game. It sounds almost like you're telling me something else will define the future.
I think so. I mean, these are still going to be important, but if I had to sum it up in three, I would say I would change those now to going to be about intelligence, it's going to be about sensing, and it's going to be about resilience. Now, for intelligence, I mean, the winners are going to be those operators that make the network both a platform for AI, so that's supporting inference at the edge, being able to dynamically allocate compute, being able to participate in the emerging token economy, but also leveraging AI themselves to help autonomously operate and run the networks. I think for sensing, I think this is potentially one of the big success opportunities for 6G. It's turning that radio infrastructure and the core network control into that integrated sensing as a service platform for a huge range of demand-side use cases across industry, defense, and consumer electronics. And I think that third one is resilience. And I think that rather than measuring success by having just purely a ubiquitous coverage, I think actually 6G leaders are now going to be judged on how resilient the network is, how adaptive, how quick it could recover from an issue, especially at the moment when you have huge concerns by governments and regulators about cyber attacks, about AI hallucinations, and about natural disasters. A network that can be resilient against that, can recover quick, can leverage AI to, say, root around issues, I think is going to be an absolutely incredibly important asset for a huge part of the demand side ecosystem.
So as we wrap up our podcast today, what are the steps that operators can do to make sure that they're creating value from day one?
If I had to give any recommendations today, I would say, in addition to getting involved and supporting the standardization process, which is rapidly accelerating at the moment through whether it's you're innovating and testing some of the concepts out, I would suggest utilizing 5G Advanced as a bridge between your current network investments and the 6G era. And the reason I would say that is because the most progressive telecom operators we're already working with, they're using 5G Advanced capabilities to help them test the new business models and actually develop that roadmap into 6G. And if I just take two of those, take what we've been talking about, sensing for an example. In 5G Advanced, you can already do an early form of sensing. So you can use the 5G Advanced OFDM waveform, the wider channels it brings. You can couple that with sensor fusion from video, from neighboring cell data, and then you can use AI signal analysis to basically do a form of what's called multi-static sensing, where you're being able to, I would say, coarsely identify things like a drone, which is incredibly useful at airports, do things like perimeter monitoring for security, and even crowd density identification. So yes, they're certainly somewhat coarse on day one, but there's initial demand for them, and it sets an early scene of what potentially sensing could offer in the long run. And of course, when 6G then comes along, which uses the same waveform, so the same radio, you can actually leverage the newer capabilities there to provide, even more enhanced and valuable services like 3D mapping or even material characterization. I would say the other one, Doug, just to call out, would be Edge AI. And again, you don't need to wait for 6G to start the monetization. Operators are already looking at how they can use 5G, both standalone and advanced, to enter the AI as a service markets, where they can use their edge resources to move compute closer to the users and to the enterprise workloads. Now, in many cases, that means bringing it down into the metro sites or regional data centers, or even down onto the radio aggregation points as well. Now, that creates an immediate platform to offer things like sovereign AI or hosting low latency inferencing, or even things like industrial opportunities around AI computer vision. Now, that allows you to set a value proposition today and start engaging in the AI economy, not just simply being a pipe to allow AI traffic to pass through you. It also sets the scene that you can then advance that through 6G. So rather than just treating edge as a separate compute domain within 6G, that compute domain is going to be part of the 6G architecture, and we're going to be able to coordinate that. We're going to be able to have an AI native architecture which can make intelligent decisions of where and how to serve that AI traffic, which edge nodes, how to coordinate between them. Now, if you think about this, just to give you one quick example, in 5G, for example, the user plane functions, which we are anchoring down at the edge today for user and application traffic, really just to allow us to deliver, say, a lower latency or a better experience for the traffic. That's really just bolted on. In a 6G network, that user plane becomes compute aware, dynamically compute aware. That means the network can help decide where traffic should break out, where the inferencing should be run for the most optimal cost or the most optimal latency, reducing potentially the volume of tokens that you need to use, what's needed to provide the support, say, for mobile robots. And that's just going to open a real higher value opportunity for an operator. So I think the point worth holding on to, operators don't have to choose between monetizing 5G advanced and preparing for 6G. They can basically do the same thing together. They can utilize these early services like sensing to reveal which industries are willing to pay for that network-based awareness today, which edge AI opportunities can they commercialize today, and then build into a more distributed architecture in the future. So I think that would be my guidance. You don't need to wait for 6G. You can start with 5G advanced and set that pathway today. But I would also just advise, if you want to get involved in that 6G journey, please do come and speak to us whether you're trialing, testing, or innovating around it, because we're absolutely there to help.
How can we get that conversation going? Where can we learn more?
If you want to learn more, please go to keysight.com, and you'll find a huge range of resources in terms of how we're supporting the ecosystem today, Doug, in terms of whether or not you're requiring a digital twin of the environments to prototype and innovate, whether you're needing traffic emulators to emulate what AI traffic's going to look like in the future, and how your networks will perform and behave around that, and how your radio of the future is going to behave and perform. So lots of resources there. And it's not only technical resources, we've also got people there to support you as well. So we're very keen to collaborate and co-create with the industry as we sort of accelerate that pathway to that 2028, 2029 timeframe, which is now set in stone.
Well, Stephen, as always, thank you very much indeed. This has been very interesting. I hope we get to do another podcast very soon. You can update us on what's going on. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Doug.
Innovate without limits, scale without compromise, and never pay per seat again. Discover why providers choose netsapiens.com.